Did you know that the first screen version of Hannibal Lecter wasn't Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs? It was from a movie in 1986 that almost nobody saw, but it's on this list. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. You know, through the years, Hollywood has made tons of movies that got buried. They didn't get the attention they deserved. Whether it's because bad timing, bad marketing, maybe they were ahead of their time, maybe they just hadn't found their audience, or maybe they came up against a blockbuster summer filled with movies that were going to go on to be icons. Whatever it is, there is a reason that good movies tend to get overlooked. And in the 1980s, we had a lot of years where great movies were buried under icon after icon through no fault of their own. So a while back, I did a video just like this for 1984, and that year was absolutely stacked. But I'm going to tell you that this year, 1986, was loaded, even when you get past the first 50 or 100 that people really know. So we're going to count down 10 movies that deserve a whole lot more love, but they got robbed for one reason or another. Let's jump right to the list. All right, coming in at number 10 is a vampire movie that has been stolen from, in my opinion, several times. Once through Tarantino and Rodriguez with From Dusk Till Dawn, which then got stolen for Sinners, and I am talking about 1986, of course, Vamp. Now, Vamp is Grace Jones being her crazy self in this movie and a terrifying looking vampire, but she plays a vampire nightclub queen named Katrina, and she does it almost entirely without any dialogue in this film. It's all posture, movement, very creepy makeup, and her eyes. She doesn't need a bunch of lines to feel like the most crazy, dangerous, and scary person in the room. The setup is this. You got two college guys who go looking for a stripper for a frat initiation and stumble into a nest of vampires hiding inside a like 80s neon-soaked after-hours nightclub bar. This feeling a little bit familiar. And it's called After Dark. And the whole premise is just as crazy as it sounds, but now you've seen it multiple times since then. But practical effects abound everywhere, drenched in that pink and blue neon lights. I just absolutely love it. Grace Jones's transformation alone with the makeup is worth the price of admission. Practical effects, baby. Here's why it got buried, though. This came out the same summer as bigger budget, like more well-known horror comedy hybrids that ate up all of the attention. 1986 was just absolutely loaded, and you had a movie here that was built entirely around a fashion icon's physical performance, which was kind of hard to sell with the studio marketing because they just really didn't know where to put it and how to convey that on the poster. But if you've seen this one, you will not forget it. If you haven't, you are missing one of the most purely bizarre and visually distinct things to come out of the 1980s. Check out Vamp. All right, now next up, if we want to talk about bizarre, it doesn't get more out there than Terror Vision, because you've got a family's satellite dish which accidentally pulls in a monster from outer space instead of a cable television signal, and it ends up being let loose in their house during a swinger party going on downstairs. And I need you to actually picture that for a second. Shag carpet, water beds, a grandfather living in a converted like bomb shelter in the basement, and a creature effect that looks like it crawled out of a toy commercial, like it should have been in like some kind of like Monster and Masters of the Universe or something, because it basically did though come out of it. Pictures made the thing look like it was made on a shoestring budget, and it leaned into that every single bit of the way in all of its absurdity. And instead of fighting it, it just went with it. And that doesn't always find its audience right out of the gate. It needed VHS and time to cook in order to find its audience. But the movie knows exactly what it is from the very first frame. It's not trying to be all out scary. It's trying to be gleefully tacky, over the top, cheesy, mid-80s excess, and it succeeds completely. There was simply no marketing category for this movie. This is one that had to live and find its audience through VHS, something that movies don't really have a good chance to do anymore. They can't find an audience, but this one became a cult hit. But a lot of people, I find, have never seen it. If that premise alone doesn't get you, just trust me, check it out. You're in for a wild time with Terror Vision. Now, I gotta admit, the next one is one that as a kid, grow of like 8, 9, 7, when this came out, 7, I didn't realize this wasn't a massive popular movie, because for me, this thing was awesome. It is Space Camp. And listen, this is a group of kids at NASA's real space camp that accidentally get launched into space, and it's through a robot named Jinx who triggers this whole thing. So to give Joaquin Phoenix, a young Joaquin Phoenix, his wish of getting to go into space. But the movie is loaded. You have Leah Thompson, you have Kate Capshaw, you have Joaquin before he was Joaquin. I think he was actually credited as Leaf Phoenix back then. They're all along for the ride. You got Tom Skerritt in this movie. And here's the part of why it got buried maybe at the time. It's not the plot, it's not the cast, it's not how good the movie is, it is the timing. Because this came out not long after the Challenger disaster. A movie about kids trapped on a space shuttle in orbit with a possible space shuttle disaster, released not long after the Challenger disaster, a real tragedy that myself, my brother, my mom, that millions of people watched on TV. An audience weren't really ready for it at the time. This is one where timing just got you blasted by the whole like history of the moment. It's one of the worst release timings ever, but it is a good movie, well made, a fun kids adventure film, great cast, good acting, good sci-fi elements to it. It is worth your time. And look, if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a long time, go back to Space Camp. Now, come on, the next one up is the one that gets blamed and accused of being a Top Gun knockoff, even though it came out right before Top Gun. It is Iron Eagle. And this is where this is the kids' version of Top Gun. This is almost like Red Dawn meets Top Gun, but with a lot more comedy added into it. You have a group of kids who have to team up with an Air Force pilot, a retired one, Lou Gossett Jr., playing Chappie, so they can go and rescue Colonel Masters, who's being held behind enemy lines. And this is awesome 80s America, hell yeah, good old Reagan era, wish fulfillment, kicking ass and taking names, just adrenaline redlined to the max with great soundtrack to it, needle drops blasting all over the place, which is probably why we don't have it on 4K. You've got a dogfight footage of a teenage hero flying an F-16 himself, exactly the kind of movie that every kid in 1986 wanted to believe could actually happen. It actually did spawn 3 sequels, believe it or not, and it made real money. And somehow a lot of people, unless you were alive right there hot in that era, people forget this movie even exists. It's overshadowed by bigger military movies of the 80s. It gets accused of being a knockoff, even though it wasn't. But it is a huge cultural memory and an awesome movie. A hell of a ride is Iron Eagle. Now, next up is one that I had not seen in a long time, probably since the 80s, until about 1.5 to 2 years ago, when my buddy sent me over The Wraith. And listen, this is Charlie Sheen playing a mysterious figure who shows up driving a black Dodge Interceptor that was like a concept car at the time, and he is systematically dispatching the gang who is possibly responsible for some deaths. And maybe, I don't want to give too much away here, but listen, in case some of you haven't seen it, you have a young Nick Cassavetes in this movie who directed movies. He's an actor. The whole Cassavetes family is in movies. You have Charlie Sheen, of course. You have a young Cheryl Fiend in here, a cool looking supernatural muscle car, a genre mashup in this. The Dodge M4S concept car alone, the Interceptor, is worth the rental. Just seeing that car is cool. This movie really never got a theatrical push, though. You have Randy Quaid in here playing a like serious small town sheriff. He's not hamming it up in any way. This is one that a lot of people did find, like on VHS. This is how this one found its audience too. And then over time, it became one of those hot, pure VHS rental store shelf discoveries. This is what those things lived for. That is why the VHS store was so important, was discovering buried movies like this and letting them find their audience, and then word of mouth. This one has no business working as well as it does. It is awesome. You got road race action, lots of stuff in here. It's supernatural as well. Check out The Wraith. Now, oddly enough, the next one has Charlie Sheen in it too, and you wouldn't think that movies with Charlie Sheen could get buried in the 1980s, but they definitely did, because he had other big, higher level movies coming out that were much more in the face of everyone, like Young Guns, which was huge when it came out. But at number 5, we have Lucas, and this is one that has a pretty stacked 80s cast, but a lot of people forget about it. There's so many movies like this from the 1980s, but you have Corey Haim, who plays this like super brilliant kid, but super awkward 14-year-old, like freshman in high school outsider, who falls for an older girl over the course of the summer, while his best friend, a football player, who's kind of, this is where Charlie Sheen, he's kind of playing against type in this, because he plays the football player who falls for the same girl without meaning to. And this is the one on the list that you actually have to like slow down and sit with a second to take it all in, because of from everything around it. It's a sincere movie in a way that a lot of 80s like comedies like this weren't necessarily sincere. It deals with bullying, honestly. It deals with being the smallest kid in the room, and Corey Haim was very small, and it never turns cynical about any of it. It never like casts blame. It just, this is how things are, and people overcome or they don't overcome. But there's a scene where Lucas tries out for the football team and gets absolutely just dismantled, destroyed, and gets back up anyway. He gets back up no matter what happens, and it's one of the like coolest moments because it just shows him taking it and getting back up. But this movie got buried because it came out the same year as a lot more flashy, loud teen movies that were a whole lot easier to market. This one actually asks you to like chill out, sit down, and sit with it. But you got Charlie Sheen, you've got Corey Haim. That should have been enough to carry the day. But this is one that is kind of different than the rest of the movies on this list. It got some attention, just not the amount it deserved. Now, the next one up I talked about recently on a video, but I feel like we're getting into the right time of season for this film. And this is one that a lot of even movie guys hadn't seen. People missed out on. It is Trick or Treat. And I talked about it recently, but this is basically the horror version of Weird Science. You have a bullied teen metalhead who resurrects a dead rock idol of his, Sammy Kerr, by playing his final album backwards, which was all the thing back then. Play it backwards, you know, and you're going to get some kind of message. You got cameos from Gene Simmons, Ozzy Osbourne, and a premise that is very 80s heavy with the metal satanic panic going on. Backmasking, satanic lyrics, all of that stuff that parents were terrified were going to be in the records for their kids. It was the exact, this is 80s. I'm telling you, it's all of that meets Weird Science put together. There's a full-on scene in this where Sammy Kerr is brought to life that is just ripped straight from Weird Science. It's like, oh, that's the same scene as Lisa being created in Weird Science. I think it every time. And since we're getting close to the season for it, to spooky season, I wanted to mention this one, keep it in your back pocket a little bit, because I think underneath the heavy metal and the revenge demon plot that kind of goes south on this, and the awesome car scene in here, there is a good, honest, fun movie that deals with being an outcast and what revenge is versus what it sounds like. And at 17, it is a whole ball of wax that is very different when you see that revenge being played out versus what you imagine, and then you got to deal with it, all set to some kick and rock in the 80s style and a little horror with Trick or Treat. Now, the next one up, I want to say shame on anyone if you haven't seen it, because this is one of my favorites, and it stars Barbara Crampton, who I love, and Jeffrey Combs, and it is From Beyond, Stuart Gordon's follow-up to Reanimator, and it reunites Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton from Reanimator in another Lovecraft adaptation, kind of. This time, though, they're dealing with a machine called the Resonator, which stimulates the gland in your brain, letting you perceive things from another dimension, and it's letting them perceive you right back. The practical effects here are almost Thing level. They're that good. Body horror, transformation sequences, creature work that horror nerds like me circle as being just awesome as hell. And listen, a lot of people missed this one. You had a lot of films. Reanimator got a bigger push. From Beyond, people didn't catch as much. They maybe have seen Barbara Crampton in her leather outfit, which is worth the price of admission. But Combs and Crampton, there's a reason they keep working together, because they got really good chemistry, and it shows up in here. And Barbara Crampton pushes this thing. This movie has a whole lot of sensuality to it, to just say the very, very least. Like, that is saying the least, and it is crunk up to 11. And this movie got buried in Reanimator shadow, but it has become since a cult phenomenon. Now, I think some of the original VHS art didn't do it any favors. I think if you'd have put Barbara Crampton on the cover in that outfit, a whole lot more people would have known about it. But if somehow you have missed this one, you have to check out From Beyond. Now, number 2 on this list is one of the ones that I said changed pop culture forever, because once it found its audience, it has never let go. I am talking about Highlander. Now, believe it or not, this didn't catch fire the way you would think when it first came out. Christopher Lambert is an immortal Scottish swordsman, if you don't know, but there can only be one. He's been in this like centuries-long battle against other immortals, and Sean Connery is his mentor. You've got a Queen soundtrack set to all of that, and this one bombed. Believe it or not, like genuinely bombed at American movie theaters. Studios had no idea how to market Highlander, and audiences didn't show up. Most of the metrics showed that the movie should have just disappeared completely. But then, through VHS rental and cable on this one, cable played a big part here. People were discovering it on the shelves and then catching it at like 2 a.m. on cable TV. It built on itself in a pop culture phenomenon that led to sequels, an animated series, a live action series. Conventions still run it to this day. We're getting a reboot of this thing. This is the entire cultural footprint of movies that can find an audience and become something way beyond what they started out. This is the purest video era success story probably on this whole list. A movie that found its audience and built it despite being told that it shouldn't be able to. If you haven't seen Highlander, what are you doing? Check it out. And at number 1, we have a movie from Michael Mann, and it's his adaptation of Red Dragon. It is Manhunter, and you've got William Peterson as an FBI agent hunting a serial killer called the Tooth Fairy, and Brian Cox, years before Anthony Hopkins ever put on a mask, as the very first on-screen Hannibal Lecter. So think about that for a second, because everybody associates Anthony Hopkins with Hannibal Lecter, and they think that's first to come out because that's one of the most iconic villains in the history of film, right? With Silence of the Lambs and all of that. But this movie is where it started, not with Hopkins and Silence of the Lambs. It's in a movie that almost nobody saw when it came out, where Brian Cox plays Hannibal Lecter, and he plays him completely different in this movie than Anthony Hopkins does in Silence of the Lambs. He's more cold, more clinical, less theatrical, and kind of over-the-top satisfied with himself in the way Anthony Hopkins is. And it's a fascinating watch just to compare your two Hannibal Lecters in your mind. But then you have Michael Mann's visual style, which was already pretty much fully formed here and then became his signature later with that cold blue and teal color palette that almost every movie he does has. And this was years before Miami Vice like kind of made that popular. But you see that kind of color palette even if you see in any of his other movies. Watch The Keep. Everything has that kind of color palette. But Manhunter got buried completely, so completely that most people don't even know it exists. Normies, a lot of normies don't know this one exists, let alone saw it, when it came out. But this is maybe the most perfect example of a buried movie on this entire list, and that's why Manhunter is at number 1. So there you go, 10 movies, track these down, watch them. Some of them you might already know. A lot of you are movie savvy on this channel because I could have thrown out, you could throw out movies on these buried lists like Big Trouble in Little China that a lot of normies didn't see and it flopped at the theaters. But you guys out there, a lot of you are much more savvy than that, so I don't put them on lists like this. So I try to dig a little bit deeper and find some good ones while still introducing more casual fans to some movies they might have missed that some other hardcore fans might know. But tell me in the comments, what are some movies from 1986 that you remember but a lot of people don't? Maybe they got buried for some reason. Let me know down there. Who knows? It could be on another video eventually when I do this again, but we got a lot of years to go through. And that's what I got for you this time. So like, subscribe, hype up the video. That helps out the channel, especially building into spooky season in the last quarter of the year here, my favorite time of the year. Be here for it all. You can join my Patreon. The link is in the description. You'll get even more content and your name and lights on every single video, and I really do appreciate it. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.